Okay, so I've got a follower who keeps DMing me on Instagram and saying that her family is undecided and they want more information about the differences between the policies between Harris and Trump, but they won't go to their websites. They don't want to read anything, and they just want a cheat sheet. They just want a really simple cheat sheet. Okay, I'm going to do my best for you, okay? I'll try to make this quick. Here is your video cheat sheet of the differences. Although I really think reading is an underrated thing. We'll start with Donald Trump because his policies are really easy to break down because he has so few of them. Basically, his entire platform is deport 13 million undocumented people, put 10 to 20, probably 20% seems to be where he's landed, up to 60% tariffs on all imported goods. So these are not targeted tariffs. This is all imported goods, and then continue his tax cuts, which are about to expire. So he's going to give really large tax cuts permanently to the wealthy and corporations. These are tax cuts that, by the way, barely impact anybody below the top 5% of income earners and corporations. So that's his policies. That's all he's got. If you read the platform, if you read his website, there's nothing else. Now, we know he will do more, a big one being, of course, that he is going to ban reproductive rights. That is just a given. If you look at the people who will be in his administration, if you look at Project 2025, we're looking at a loss of reproductive freedom, probably most birth control, the ability for women to cross state lines. There will be surveillance. That's all part of his platform, but we're talking policies right now that he's admitting to. I've already discussed the fact that deportation policy is A, kind of impossible, and B, were it to be executed, would cost somewhere between $500 billion and $1 trillion and would contract our economy between 4 and 6.5%, depending on the economist you ask. So that policy alone is going to send us into a recession if we're lucky, and likely into a depression. 4.3% contraction was what we got during the last Great Recession. And they're saying it could contract the economy up to 6.5%. So you do that math. As for his tariffs, those are going to spike inflation in a way that economists across the board, from all sides of the political spectrum, are saying are going to drive inflation up somewhere around 9%. And if he messes with the Fed, as he's promising to do, could keep us in 9% inflation until 2040. Oh, and then the tax cuts. Those will add somewhere between 7 and 15 trillion more dollars to our deficit and will help nobody but the top, like I said, 5 to 1%. So those are his policy proposals. On everything else, he has said nothing. And I think that we can joke about the concepts of a plan line, but he's got no policy proposals written out. None. That is unacceptable for a presidential candidate, let alone a congressional candidate. Any candidate should have policy proposals written out. Kamala Harris's economic policy proposal booklet is 80 pages, and that was before she announced her policy proposals specifically geared towards Latino men and also a policy proposal geared towards Black men. There's another one that's all about expanding Medicare and expanding home health services and also adding vision and dental to her Medicare policies. That's also not included in the 80-page booklet. But what the 80-page booklet does talk a lot about is housing. She's got a long proposal to make housing affordable and to build 3 million more houses. She wants to cut taxes for working people. So that's everybody making less than $400,000 a year is going to get a tax cut. She's got a plan to attack price gouging and make grocery stores stop gouging customers. She's got a plan to lower healthcare costs, and she will continue the policies that her and Biden have had of supporting ACA subsidies, of making sure that prescription drug prices are going down, and they've already achieved that and are continuing to. She will continue the insulin $35 cap for Medicare and try to get it for everybody. That's a policy proposal. Energy costs will continue to go down under President Harris because she will continue with a transition to green energy, which is something that saves us money and also keeps us in pace with the rest of the world. Trump wants to drag us backwards to oil and gas, which nobody's did. Like, how stupid can you be? Nobody's doing it anymore. But that's where he wants to go because why? He takes a ton of money from oil and gas companies. There's also a lot about breaking up monopolies in Kamala Harris's platform. And Donald Trump is a big fan of monopolies, so he will keep them going. She will continue the work of the Biden-Harris administration to break them up, like the Albertsons-Kroger merger, which they have stopped. She will protect reproductive rights. She will protect all of our freedoms. She's heavily invested in supporting public education. And it's important to know that Republicans are coming for public education. Donald Trump has promised to eradicate the Department of Education. So they sort of want to Christianize education. And that's another really important thing that's not a policy proposal, but is very important for people to understand, is that under Donald Trump, especially because he will not stay president for very long. We can see his decline. So we're really looking at a J.D. Vance presidency. And while you can argue that Donald Trump says he's, not attached to Project 2025, although he very much is, deeply attached to, and even in a speech in 2022 said that that was the groundwork for the policies he would pursue in a second term. But J.D. Vance is all in with Project 2025. J.D. Vance would be our president, so really you want to look at what he wants, and what he wants is Christian nationalism. He wants women to get back in the kitchen, have more babies, stay in marriages even when they're violent, and under no circumstances, even in the case of rape or the other thing, be able to have a termination. So that's their policies. So let's see. Donald Trump plans on crashing the economy, sending us into a recession if we're lucky. All women in the country will lose their rights. We already know that all LGBTQ people will lose their rights. Trump is recently talking about the enemy within, which means that even those of us living in blue states are targeted by that, right? And he's very proudly talking about violence. Whereas Kamala Harris talks repeatedly about working for all Americans, about unifying us, about freedoms, about supporting working Americans. She is a huge supporter of unions. She is a huge supporter of LGBTQ people. She has got solid economic plans. Just yesterday, 23 Nobel Prize winning economists came out and said that her plans are infinitely superior to Donald Trump's, which are actually dangerous for the economy. So maybe you haven't been paying attention, and if you don't feel like going to the website, that's fine. Kamala Harris is the obvious choice, unless you don't care about our economy, our democracy, women, queer people, climate change, gun violence, or living in a calm and stable country. If you don't care about those things, then yeah, stay undecided for sure. Otherwise, I hope this cheat sheet helped.